and to Chile, because as we heard last night, we clap also for them. We recognize the sacrifice, and we give this sense that I got when I was given the Nobel Peace Prize, that there is a sense of justice in the world. We're living through very extremely dark times. It demands sacrifice from every journalist. It demands sacrifice from every citizen in the world, from every one of us. In the Nobel lecture in 2021, I said that we're standing on the rubble of the world that was. That became literal in 2022 and in 2023, and even worse in 2024. In an Oscar-winning film, and we do need the attention of the public, in this Oscar-winning film by Mstislav Chernov, there was a woman who caught my eye, and she sticks in my mind. Because it was the first time she went back to her home, and she was waving in front of her, because there was nothing left. And she said, "Can't anybody do anything? We are being killed. They're killing us here." That was in Ukraine, but it could just as easily have been in Sudan or Gaza, where more than 34,500 people are dead. The challenge today is whether our international rules-based order still works. The challenge is justice. It is core to our humanity. Too many are getting away with impunity, from countries to companies, and it is dividing us in ways that are literally destroying us. It is destroying trust for the next generation, right? As journalists, we are on the front lines, and when we fail to hold the line, the people we serve lose their rights, their freedoms, their lives. So we are jailed, killed, silenced. The number of people jailed in 2023. RSF says nearly 800 journalists went to jail, more than 520 still in prison today. That includes Adam Dershkovich in Russia, Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong, Frenchie Melicumpio in the Philippines. The journalists killed, it's 44% higher than in 2022 because of Gaza. And those silenced, well, as the women journalists will know, there are many, many more novel ways of silencing journalists today when free speech is literally used to pound you to silence free speech. In the Nobel lecture, I said an atom bomb exploded in our information ecosystem when journalists lost our gatekeeping powers to technology companies. That happened around 2014, and the death toll from that, the death toll is still happening today, and it continues. In our first contact with AI, social media turned our world upside down. And I will take what he said in the video forward by rewarding lies 6 times faster. Lies spread in 2018, according to MIT. In our data in the Philippines, if you amplify fear, anger, fuel hatred, it spreads even faster. Creating a distribution system that is extremely dangerous to journalists, to anyone who doesn't want to lie, that doesn't give journalism a chance. This outrage economy, built on our data, micro-targeting us, has transformed our world. It insidiously manipulates us, and not just us, but the people we serve, the public, igniting the worst of who we are, fueling our blackest emotions. These next 3 sentences I've said over and over since 2016, including in the Nobel lecture, and please allow me to repeat them again. Without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we have no shared reality, no rule of law, no democracy. You cannot begin to solve existential problems like climate change climate change if you don't have facts, if we are not in a shared reality, right? Like imagine, personalization means I will serve each one of you a different reality, the one you want. In our old world, I was just with Lucia Newman, in our old world that would be called an insane asylum. Generative AI, well, let's talk journalists, human rights defenders, anyone under attack, we are defenseless. Defenseless against this information warfare because that is what it is. And at this time, the greed for profit and authoritarians using the technology to consolidate power, greed for profit, authoritarians, they align. Did you notice they're using the same tactics against journalists, against the people? It makes it impossible for journalists to do our work without being prepared to sacrifice. Generative AI, let's go there, launched November 2022, triggered another arms race, and the failure of democratic governments to hold tech companies in check. This is the least regulated globally, to put laws in place to protect the public. Each day of impunity, which is what's happening, means governments lose more and more power. It's a tech coup in plain sight. And like social media, large language models or LLMs, they're not anchored in facts. They spew lies. This time they use a chatbot, and they call it hallucinations. They sound like facts, but they're not. It's about to get worse. You've heard the phrase, the enshittification of the internet. I don't know how you'll translate that in Spanish. But generative AI is gonna make it even harder to find facts. It's why I'm so glad I just came in from Brazil. I'm glad that Brazil included information integrity on the G20 agenda. It is not a coincidence that 71% of the world today lives under autocratic rule. Globally, we are electing illiberal leaders democratically, because if we don't have integrity of facts, we will not have integrity of elections. And in this tipping point year for democracy, where half of the world is voting, Americans, the EU votes in June, Americans in November, they will have far less safety measures in place in the technology that connects and rules us. In my book, How to Stand Up to a Dictator, I compared my dictator, then Rodrigo Duterte, to Mark Zuckerberg, a far more powerful global dictator. So what happened after Elon Musk bought Twitter? We went even further to the basement. So we will have far less safety measures in place than in 2020, less than in 2016, when the political dominoes began to fall. That means people will get less news, they'll get more propaganda, more information operations to push our emotional buttons. We will have to struggle for agency, for independence. Okay, I'll close. Because I'm not going to leave you depressed, right? What do we do as journalists? I have thoughts. For the news heads who are here, who are listening, the managers of the news, we have 1 year or 2 years for digital news to survive, where we have to think of something new. That is existential, faster death than the climate. There are only 3 ways a news website gets traffic, right? It's direct, social, or search. As of January last year, Meta, the world's largest distributor of news, began choking traffic to news websites. It's anywhere from 50% to 90% drop. Again, less news in your feeds, more propaganda, more information operations, and with generative AI, you're going to get far more toxic sludge, is what I called it in the Nobel lecture. Search. Why is search important? Because the search generative experience is built on top of the search, right? What does that mean? That means if you're a news site, you're already mined, your data's mined, but at a certain point, it's been rolled out in all our countries, 125, you're going to type in your questions onto search, and you're not going to get a link back to the news website. That's already happening. Why? Because Google gets far more money from the search than they would from revenues from our news websites. So we need to prepare because news and journalism must survive. We have to stop begging the global dictators, the tech companies, to protect the integrity of information. We need governments to step up. Please, Chile, go with Brazil, and put laws in place for civil society so that we can organize, we can demand better. For the journalists, the news organizations, today on World Press Freedom Day, the International Fund for Public Interest Media, which was created to help us survive this time period, we're announcing an open call for you to grow. Come up with new ideas and send it. IFPIM is the website, and there's a $5 million fund just for the Global South, right? Sorry, let me go back. So the second thing is we have to build our own tech. We must own our own distribution where people are not insidiously manipulated. We started doing this in Rapper 2 years ago. And I hate to send you to X, but I did tweet. I still gotta go back to tweet. I tweeted the link to a Matrix Protocol chat app, right? Where it is open source, end-to-end encrypted, it is decentralized, and not one person can control what you feel or what you think. We need to continue telling heartbreaking and, as we've heard, heartwarming stories. We need to remind people about the goodness of human nature, right? Because they see so little of that on social media. Because kindness, the kindness of strangers, it exists. I wouldn't be standing in front of you today if it wasn't for that. People who, at the very last minute, put themselves in danger. I remember a woman who opened the cashier so I could post it. Oh my God, I don't know why I'm emotional. Anyway, she opened the cashier because if she didn't, it was a 3-day holiday and I would have gotten arrested and had to stay in jail for 3 days. So there's so many people. We need to have faith in the parts. We need to have faith in the parts of our humanity that the technology stifles and kills. Let me end with this. We live in existential times. What we do now matters. This time matters. The war isn't just happening in Gaza, in Sudan, in Ukraine. It isn't out there. It's in your pocket. It's here, right? Each of us figuring our own battles for facts, for integrity. Because the dictator-to-be can zoom in and target the cellular level of our democracy. That is each of us. Information warfare is changing our geopolitical world. So we have to organize, we have to collaborate, we find new forms, find new partnerships. Let me end this the way I began. We're standing on the rubble of the world that was. And we must have the foresight and the courage to imagine and create the world as it should be. More compassionate, more equal, more sustainable. A world safe from fascists and tyrants. Tell our communities the whys. Why is it happening? Our imagination and creativity must spark the empathy that is so crucial to get us through these dark times. Power and money is not enough. Let's prove it. And prove that inspiration ignites the good in each of us. And then finally, for all the working journalists who are out there every day doing your job, keep doing, oh my God, I'm so emotional. For the journalists and the activists, keep doing, keep going, because today matters. This is what our next world will look like in a decade. Thank you. Thank you so much.